This is from Sean E. Sitch, at Sitch. How does MAME or other emulation affect your experience with games from your childhood? Does it cheapen the experience?
Ooh, that's a question because you're basically asking us to say, as a child, or we either didn't know what we were talking about, or we didn't really enjoy the game based upon how it was, or maybe our memories of that game is stronger than the actual game was. So, whenever I played a game I went back to and hadn't played in like 20 years, or at least 10 years, like in the late 90s when I'm first booting up MAME, I'm like, you know what, I want to play Sly Spy. To me, it's just as good because you forget a lot of stuff from the game that you liked. You forget, like, you kind of remember, if you haven't played a game in like 10, 15 years, you kind of remember the sounds or how it controlled. I mean, visually it's probably the strongest memory, but you kind of remember what the music was, but you're going to lose the memory.
Mm-hmm.
So you go back and play it, not that it's new again, but it's like, oh, wow, this is why I still remember this game. I remember the Golden Gun, like you remember like in Sly Spy hitting the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the cool like underwater levels. You remember the motorcycle. You can aim up in the air. I'm just using this one game as an example because I mentioned it prior in the podcast and it was never released anywhere else. So that's a prime example for it being, playing it on MAME, putting the quarters in. So it doesn't. I don't think it ruins it. I really don't. I think it can enhance it or have you remember why you loved it. I mean, if you remember a game for 20 years, it's probably for a good reason.
Right.
It's probably not bad. Like, there's plenty of games I played as a kid, like in the arcades, that I'm never gonna remember again because you know why, they weren't fun or they weren't good.
Exactly.
Like for example, I remember being disappointed by. I loved Three Stooges as a kid. I never remember liking that Three Stooges arcade game that much. It's not a bad game. As a kid, I just couldn't get a handle of it. So I remember playing that later. I'm like, oh, this is a decent game. I still don't love it.
Sure.
So it's not like every game you played as a kid that was automatically good. You remember the ones you remember for, I think, for a reason.
Yeah, and I would have to mostly agree with you here. I think that MAME or emulation can potentially cheapen a library that you're not familiar with. For instance, let's just pick, say you don't know the TurboGrafx, and you download an entire set of TurboGrafx games. Well, I mean, it's not a huge library, but suddenly you've got this huge list of games to go through, and it's hard for a lot of people, I think, when they have all these new games to try to pick one game and stick with it. So
too much to choose from, right?
Yeah, too much to choose from. You may only get a paper thin, idea of what each game is about. You may never go more than skin deep with it. I think that MAME and emulation can kind of cheapen libraries that way. However, like Pat said, if it's a game from your youth, it doesn't matter what you're playing it on. If the memory is so strong that you've remembered it for that long, or the memory is so strong that you want to go back and play that game, I don't think it has any real difference.
At least in the late 90s, when you first had these ROM sites popping up, before you could easily get a zip file of all of them, because they probably weren't available. There was no such thing as torrents in.
Yeah.
You had to pick, unless you want to say that I did sit there. I was crazy in college, and I did sit there and try to download every MAME ROM I could get my hands on, because I thought it was amazing that you could play. I was like, playing arcade games on your computer is like otherworldly.
Yeah, I know.
To me, it still boggles my mind that you could do that.
Yeah.
But the ability to do that, maybe like, I'm a MAME ROM clicker, I'm going to get them all. But at first, though, it was just getting the ones I remembered. It's like I said, I'm going to get Ninja Turtles Arcade. Oh my God, I haven't played it in 9 years. You can't play it on any console. Get that one and then play it at 2 frames a second because my Gateway 2000 computer can't keep up. That's what the experience was. Because remember, at first, you can only play the older games at a smooth frame rate because the computing power at that point, it's funny to think of now, you couldn't play some of those games, like Ninja Turtles. It was like, it was stuttering.
Yeah, anything after 90 was a little...
It got up there. Like, you had to wait till the early 2000s there. You had to wait for your to move beyond the Pentiums, right? You had to get beyond that. At least a Pentium 2 or 3 or whatever the fuck. I don't think I had Pentium 2. I don't think I had a Pentium ever. I had whatever the hell a Gateway 2000 was. Now it's a Pentium, like 133 or whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
But Gateway 2000, those overpriced pieces of they were okay. They were made in the USA, at least. Now I'm going to be crying now about people losing their jobs making Gateway 2000 with a nice little cow design on it.
Lots of bloatware.
Lots of bloatware on those?
Yeah.
Was there? I don't remember my Game Boy 2000 that much.
Maybe not on there. I just remember that was like the last era where computers just came with like a box full of fucking shit. Like, here is all this
Here's
software.
10 3.5s.
Yeah, and here's like 2 free games, and here's software you may never use, and yeah, but
Well, they weren't all pre-installed, was it?
yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking.
Some
They weren't
were.
pre-installed.
It wasn't bloatware. It was
Ware.
additional wear.
Yeah,
Additional wear, not adware. That's something else.
companionware.
Companionware.
That's what
It was companionware.
we can call it that. It's a friendly term for it.
Oh, okay. It was like the when you bought my Sound Blaster 16 pack with the CD-ROM, and you got Dennis Miller's. That's Geek to Me CD-ROM. That's companionware that you play once and never again.
All right.
Dennis Miller talking about computer humor. All right. How's my Dennis Miller? I haven't done it in a while.